Hi everyone, thanks for being with me. I'm going to talk again about the voice, the referendum for the constitutional change in relation to First Nations people. I'm going to have this conversation again because I am very concerned about the misinformation that's being provided by those on the right in relation to this constitutional change. Now, I do need to tell a bit of a story before I start, and this is a really important discussion to have because I'm going to highlight here the way this misinformation is presented and the impact that it tends to have on our community. Now, yesterday I had my normal round of golf with a couple of mates, and during our coffee at the end of the golf, I was asked them what they thought about The Voice. And one of my friends said, well, I haven't really given it all that much thought. But the other one, whose name is Paul, incidentally, is a lovely man, got a lot of time for Paul. Paul thinks very broadly and interestingly about issues that concern all of us. So I was interested to hear what Paul had to say. And Paul, though, chose to tell me that he was going to vote no for it and highlighted a few issues which I thought were misinformed. Nevertheless, a good conversation ensued, and we talked openly about my view of The Voice and its importance, and he talked about his. His presentation to me highlighted the misconceptions that many of us have had, or many people in the community rather, have had in relation to The Voice. Now, Paul's an intelligent man, and I certainly have a lot of time for him. And it was an interesting conversation, to say the least. It didn't get heated in any way. We just heard each other's point of view. But I was concerned about some of the things that he said and wondered where in the hell he got that information from. I came to realise that many people haven't heard or read information that is extremely relevant around this. There's just been this echo chamber talking about how The Voice is going to change a whole host of things and that things are going to be so different once The Voice is recognised. Now, I certainly don't see Paul as a racist by any means, but I do take objection to, I guess, some of the statements that he made in relation to The Voice. And one of them in particular, I think, was the fact that it was going to change the way that Indigenous people would be seen in this country and that they were going to have certain rights and privileges that none of us would be, or the rest of Australia, other Australians might be having. And I've also, the reason why I actually decided to have this conversation with them was the previous day, on Thursday night, I wasn't able to sleep very well because I'd watched a presentation by Peta Credlin that I thought was unjust, unfair. And in the light of the conversation I was having with Paul, I came to realise that it's the Peta Credlins of this world and that right-wing media bubble that tends to be presenting an image which is not necessarily true. And when I played this video of Peter talking about this, I came to further realisation of the inaccuracies and the lies that are propagated by people like Credlin and people on the right, and how those views have tended to affect, I guess, people like Paul. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play for you some of what Credlin had to say on her show on the right-wing Murdoch media, Sky News. And even though I do need to note that Paul was not aware of Peta Credlin, had trouble trying to understand who she was, I guess, doesn't look at Sky News, doesn't watch Sky News. But then this is the arguments that we're getting from people like Credlin, Paul Murray and Andrew Bolt are all siphoning certain information and making sure that most of the people that watch this stupid show are thinking about the Voice in a negative way. And when you look at the sort of things that Credlin is saying, it just expresses, I guess, the way a lot of people are viewing this issue. And I wanted to highlight some of those issues. And I'm going to play a bit of her video, and then I'm going to show you how absolutely wrong this woman is. So I will play this for you now, and I'll talk about it as I go through it.
The statement from the heart that's constantly referenced to justify the creation of an Indigenous voice to the Parliament is normally thought to be just one page. At least that's what most Australians think it is, in part because that's what the Prime Minister has repeatedly told them.
The Uluru Statement from the Heart, I'd encourage people to read. It'll take you about 2 minutes. You can fit it on one A4 page. That's the request. And to read the words that are there in the referendum going forward that are very clear as well.
Here he is again on the one-pager.
The Uluru Statement from the Heart does speak to our hearts. A short document, long in the making. It is a masterclass in spare eloquence. I keep a copy of it on the wall of my office in Parliament House, and there isn't a day that I don't look up to it. Sometimes I focus on a couple of lines, but often I read it right through. If you haven't, I do recommend that you do. Like the Gettysburg Address, it only requires a few minutes. It literally fits on one A4 page.
And again,
the beautiful statement, frankly, that can be fitted on one A4 page, and I'd encourage your listeners.
Now, I'm going to play a little bit further of this in a moment where she does make a statement which is totally false. And I'll stop it at there, and I will explain to you why this statement that she's making is so false.
Listeners, to have a read of that.
Only that's not true. It's a lie. The Uluru Statement
This is the lie.
from the Heart is not a one-page document. It's actually 26 pages in all. And we only know that because the government's been forced to release the full document under Freedom of Information, FOI. And it's the whole 26 pages of the Uluru Statement from the Heart that every Australian...
This is entitled, as you'll see on the top of this page, Statement of Record, Ross River Dialogue, 31st of March to the 2nd of April 2017.
Australians should read, not the PM's sanitised one-pager.
This is a compilation of many, many discussions that have had since 2016 in relation to... So she's pulled out one document. So what she's showing us here is one document, 2016, 2017, with regard to part of the work that had been done via the councils and the dialogue groups that have been set up around Australia in relation to the Voice. Now, I find that she's quite disingenuous around all of this because what she's telling us now is a distinct and utter lie. If you want to find out anything that you can about the Voice, then you can refer to a number of sites that discuss the Voice. I'll bring one of them up here. And this one is the Uluru Statement from the Heart. And this is a fabulous website. It's Uluru Statement DV. So I'll put this actually below so that you can have a further look at this. But in this, they do talk about the Voice, what it means, and Makarrata and what that means. And there seems to be some confusion as to what Makarrata is. And it says here, the coming together after a struggle to supervise a process of agreement making between governments and the First Nation and truth-telling about our history. That is what Makarrata is, and it's a committee that would be able to be established in order to be able to have those discussions with the government. And this particular site is a fabulous site. It talks about our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander tribes were the first sovereign nations of the Australian continent and its adjacent islands, and possessed it under our own laws and customs. This our ancestors did according to the reckoning of our culture from the creation, according to the common law from the immemorial, and according to the science more than 60,000 years ago. And it talks about the Indigenous people and how they came to think and have their cultural background and beliefs that they do. And then there's also the dialogue. So in the dialogue, you can see the places in which they had these conversations and so on. And then there's the this particular document here, which actually explains to everybody the design principles of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander voice. Now, since 2016, there's been a continual conversation in relation to the voice. It has been highly documented, every aspect of the voice, from the places in which they had the dialogues to the conclusions that they'd come to. There are hundreds of reports around the voice. If you want to take the time out to look at them, you can search through them at this particular site, which is the urilustatement.org. It's got all those documents there dating back to 2016, and it lists all of the people that have been involved in formulating the voice. Now, it's interesting just to have a look at this particular site, I think. A voice to Parliament will be a permanent body to make representations to the Australian Parliament and the Executive Government on legislation and policy of significance to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. It will further the self-determination of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples by giving them a greater say in matters that affect them. The following are the design principles. So one of those is the voice will give an independent advice to Parliament and Government. Advice. The voice would make representations to the Parliament and Executive Government on matters relating to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. The voice would be able to make representations proactively. The voice would be able to respond to requests for representations from the Parliament and the Executive Government, for requests from them. The voice would have its own resources to allow it to research, develop and make representations. The Parliament and Executive Government should seek representations in writing from the voice early in the development of proposed laws and policies. The voice will be chosen by Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people based on the wishes of local communities. Members of the voice would be selected by Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities, not appointed by the Executive Government. Members would serve on the voice for a fixed period of time to ensure regular accountability to their communities. And I need to say that when one has a look at all these documents that they've outlined, they'll tell you how many people will be on the voice, how many people will be, how they will go about the election process for those people that will be represented on the voice. There's a whole host of documents too about what it is that they can and cannot do, and how and what sort of governance they will have on the voice. And they are specific about the fact that the voice will only make presentations in regard to relations, into regard to situations and events that only impact Indigenous people. And they are very, very clear in their documentation as to that is their purpose. The voice will be empowering, community-led. I'll just come back to this again for you. The voice will be empowering, community-led, inclusive, respectful and culturally informed. Members of the voice will be expected to connect with and reflect the wishes of their communities. The voice would consult with grassroots communities and regional entities to ensure its representations are informed by their experience, including the experience of those who have been historically excluded from participation. Their voice will be accountable and transparent, subject to standard government and reporting requirements to ensure transparency and accountability. The voice members would fall within the scope of the National Anti-Corruption Commission. The voice members would be able to be sanctioned or removed for serious misconduct. The voice will respect the work of existing organisations. The Voice would be able to make representations about improving programs and services, but it would not manage money and deliver services. These are important things for us to realise, I think. The Voice will not have a veto power. It will not be able to veto laws or whatever. It is just a proposing of ideas that relate to Indigenous people. After the referendum, there will be a process with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities, the Parliament and the broader public to settle the Voice design after the referendum. Legislation to establish the Voice will then go through standard parliamentary processes to ensure adequate scrutiny by elected representatives on both sides of the party. And then there's a party which has resources. There's all these. So these are tools. So if you want to know anything about the Voice, there are all these tools. So, Credlin is incredibly stupid, because if you really do the research and have a look and are interested enough, you'll find that there are webinars. There are hundreds and hundreds of pages of documentation in relation to all of this. Expert analysis of Indigenous Voice co-design, the youth perspective. Megan Davis is talking about in relation to constitutional law, if you want to have a look at that. There's the Pat Anderson, the Loia O'Donoghue oration delivered by Pat Anderson. You can have a look at that. What's next? What's happening? This is from the 21st of May, 2021. So, and there's all these webinars and discussions. So in other words, for Credlin to say that there's just this one document that she chose to present, and she picks out of that some of the more radical things that have been said and discussed while they've been having these multiple discussions over 5 or 6 years now in relation to the Voice, and she picks out just a few just to put forward her argument that this is what the Voice is all about, and it's just wrong at every possible level. So I'm going to suggest that if you're concerned about the Voice, you just go to some of these sites. I'll put a connection below for some of these sites I've referred to. Have a look at them. Make a decision for yourself. Don't allow it to be influenced by me or Credlin or what you think is being said on the right wing. Investigate it yourself by going to the sources. Don't listen to what some of the people are saying on the right wing, where they are just expressing their racist, filtered views about what the Voice actually does represent. Thanks, everybody, for being with me. I hope that some of this makes some sense to you. If you want to know more, just contact me if you can. You can do so at this particular email address. And also, I'd like to think that if you have got the time, that you do subscribe to my channel so that you can gather more information about some of these issues that do concern me. So thanks, everybody. Take care, look after yourselves, and be safe.